church. Welcome back, everybody, to Chosen Generation. Now we're talking about church dropouts. Church dropout. Now, some of you might be wondering, what's a church dropout? I've heard of college dropouts, but what is a church dropout? Well, we're going to be talking about that right now. Now, before we start, I want to read this quote to you that I found so profound. It's by Rebecca Grace, the AFA Journal. She's from the AFA Journal. She writes this. She says, here's a church, here's a steeple, open the doors, but where are the people? You know, not the people, just the older people. They're still there if they didn't go home to glory. But I'm talking about, where are the young people? They're not there. So my question to you, Elder, is why are so many young people leaving the church? Why do you think?
To be quite honest, there are so many reasons why the young people are leaving the church, but one of the main reasons, if not the main reason, is that young people have been coaxed into being there. I hate to say it, they've been bamboozled with pizza and cookies and musical chairs and, you know, all kinds of other trinkets, but they have not had the substance. They have not had the foundation built. So when they do leave the church, what happens is that there is nothing, so they have not been built on a foundation. So when a true storm does come, it blows them away. When a real professor gets up and starts to teach philosophy 101, they get turned out, so to speak.
Yeah.
So that's definitely what it is. The foundation of the truth and the tenets of the faith are not there.
Wow. You know, and it's crazy with everything that's going on when it concerns to young people, that they are leaving the church. There's like this great big exodus happening. Right. You know, especially it's like right after high school. Yeah. You know, you already start to see a little bit of the frustration before, especially as a youth leader. I see it. You know, I think that. Would you think that some young people are coming to church only because their parents are making them?
For the majority of young people, to be quite honest, that is what it is. The church is based on family.
Yeah.
The church, the first family was the first church. God came and met with Adam in the cool of the day.
Yeah.
That was church time, devotion time. So they came to church on that premise. However, if they were not, they didn't develop a relationship with the Lord themselves, they won't stay. So we've got to get past mom and them being saved. Now we got to get Ray, Pookie, and you understand, and the rest of Bebe kids saved for themselves. They need to understand, and youth ministry shouldn't hide behind the coat of Sunday morning preaching. Youth meetings, whether it be Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, have to give them gospel for them to understand and develop a faith in the Lord Jesus Christ themselves.
Wow. You know, I was reading a statistic, guys. Again, it's from the AFA Journal. It says that 70% of the people 23 to 30 years old and are nowhere to be found in the church on a regular basis. For at least a year between the ages of 18 and 22, they become church dropouts, according to a 2007 study from Lifeway Research. You know that these students who attend a Protestant church at least twice a month for at least 1 year during high school are leaving the church, and most of them are doing so during their first year of college.
Wow.
As soon as they go, it's like, boom, bump church.
Right.
You know, and what do you think that the issue is when they step onto the college campus, that they are, you know, walking away from the church? Now, I'm not just talking about your literal, you know, your church building, you know, but walking away from God. Do you think they're intimidated by the professors? Do you think, what is it?
The exact opposite. I think that when people leave the church, young people leave the church, they're actually impressed by the professors. They're impressed by the knowledge. They're impressed by the philosophies. And I think that what happens is that we've been giving them such a watered down perspective of God that God is almost uneducated.
Wow.
Church is almost uneducated. So as soon as I walk out the door, I find a cohesive conversation, and they know statistics of what's going on in real life. They understand what's happening. They know what's going on in Capitol Hill, and they're not hucking and bucking and giving me a tongue to tie up what I didn't preach cohesively. These young people are now hearing people who have normal conversation about the subjects that they know. And the church has failed.
Yeah.
The church, I'm not talking about the black church, the white church, I'm not talking about one church denomination or another, at large has failed in giving them an actual intelligible gospel where God seems as though he knows something.
Yeah.
You know, we give them, prayer, but we don't give them the political side.
Yeah.
You know, but they walk into a political science class, and here is this man who's standing up in the front of the classroom talking about all kinds of information, and they're like, wow. And then at the end of it, they pump in a little of Gnosticism or a little atheist philosophy, and our young people are turned out after the first year.
Wow. And everything that you're saying is so true. I found a statistic. Again, and I'm encouraging everybody, y'all need to do your homework on this. It's from Christian Youth in America. It's called Christian Youth in America Are Leaving the Church. It says 70 to 75% of Christian youth leave the church after high school. Now, this is according to the Barna and USA Today. They did a study on that and did a survey. 100%. And just like you said about intellectualism, it says intellectual skepticism is one of the major reasons why they walk away.
Right.
At church, stuff didn't make sense to me. I couldn't get nobody to break nothing down for me. Now I go to school, I'm studying, mythological stuff, and I'm studying history, and things are making sense, and I'm doing all this research. I'm understanding about feminism, and I'm understanding about the male movement and this and that. So when they say that intellectual skepticism is one of the major reasons why a lot of young people walk away from God.
To be quite honest, that's why me, Elder Samuel, as a PK, I didn't get God because of my father's preaching or anyone else's preaching. I had a problem with God. And at 15, I said, God, this is making no sense to me. So I took a textbook that I found out later that I took in my comparative study class. I found that book and I read it. And I read another comparative religion book after that at 15. I'm talking about baccalaureate course, comparative religion. And I was that hungry. Yeah. And I said to God, God, all these religions say you're real. Yeah. But all of them have an issue with this one guy. Yeah. His name is Jesus. Yeah. What's up with that? Make sense of that to me. And he said, remember your mother used to say, and this is how God speaks to me. He said, remember what your mother used to say, in every rumor there's a little bit of truth? Yeah. He said, well, the truth to that rumor that they say about Jesus is that he is the truth. Wow. And that was the end of my search. And in my limited understanding, I didn't know I could receive Jesus at the moment. I said, okay, Sunday morning, I'm going to go to church, and when the preacher's finished, he does the altar call, I'm going to get up, and I'm going to receive the Lord Jesus. And you know what happened? The man didn't preach a lick of word. Wow. I didn't know what he preached. I just knew that at the end of that day, that summer, I walked up to the altar and gave my heart to the Lord. And it was because I had now understood an intellectual God. And he spoke to me intellectually. The thing that made the apostles so powerful is that they sat and they talked about God all day. There was no pizza, you know. Yeah. There were no grab bags. They talked about God. And the more you give the young people, the more they'll stay.
So do you think that's one of the issues when you talk about when we're looking at right now youth ministries? Right. What do you think youth ministers and the youth ministry should be doing right now that will help, really capture and impact these young people and help equip them before they go away to college? Because we only have a certain amount of years.
Right. At max 4 years.
At max 4 years.
4 years in youth ministry. At max, from 9th grade to the 12th grade. And this is when they are learning about themselves. This is when they're discovering that testosterone does things and estrogen does something else. And this is when they find out what they can do. This is when they find goals. What we have to do is give them the word. Wow. Give them the word. stop watering down the gospel because they're teenagers. They understand more than you think they do. Give them the benefit of the doubt.
That's right.
And give them the word. They learn to contend for the faith. As Jude said, I teach my young people, we don't learn this stuff so we can go out and debate people. We learn this stuff so we can defend. And Charles Spurgeon takes the same approach. Charles Spurgeon said, you never have to defend a lion.
Yeah.
You never have to argue about the greatness of a lion. Just let the lion loose.
Yeah.
And he'll defend himself.
Yeah.
And that's how we have to train our young people, that we now begin to defend our faith, but we have to know our faith.
Yeah.
Why do you believe? How, address things intelligibly. Why is Christ God?
Yeah.
Is God of Christianity the same God of other religions?
Yes.
That kind of stuff. Does science argue with God, or does it agree with God? Give them evidence. Take them to the Museum of Natural History. Show them. Teach them these kind of things. Establish these truths, because then when they get to school and they start learning about Darwinian evolution, and they start learning the Big Bang sounds like it's a foolish thing to say, but if you break it down intellectually, it begins to make sense. Yeah. And if we don't deal with these things before they get to college, trust me, college and disinformation is going to deal with them.
Oh my goodness. Now I know right now you're at the edge of the seat, because right now I feel like I just want to just dive in, because it is getting that good. I'm telling you, we're going to go even deeper with this. We're going to go even deeper with this. I'm telling you, if you're watching this and your friend's not watching, you need to call somebody on the phone, get everybody, because we're about to go in today. But before we do that, I'm doing a quick commercial break. Don't forget you chose it. I'm telling you.
My name is David Kinnaman, and I'm an author and a researcher. The statistics are showing that young people are leaving the church in staggering numbers, and I just felt compelled to figure out why.
Hello, I live in New York City, and this is how the church lost me.
Growing up in church, I think I just got too close and understood how it worked the way somebody understands how a business works.
It's just not real or relevant to me anymore.
I don't think God was who I'd made him.
You have a new generation that's asking questions, and they feel as though those questions aren't being responded with honest answers.
I consider myself to have a really great relationship with God. I don't have it in the way that my mom sees.
The result is pretty obvious. Young people are leaving the church, and in some cases, they're even losing their faith.
I don't know if Jesus was the Son of God. That pretty much means I'm not Christian, right?
I am still a Christian, I just don't go to church anymore.
Honestly, I think it's time that we start a real conversation.
We just need to start talking.
Let's start talking.
It needs to be okay to say, you lost me, and not have everyone freak out.
You lost me doesn't necessarily mean forever.
Young people need to express their frustrations, their doubts, their questions. And older Christians need a place to learn and to be heard.
It's about being able to bring up a question about evolution or sexuality without just having a Bible thrown at.
Look, let's just get it out on the table.
You lost me. You lost me.
Lost me.
And let's get this conversation started.